Boker Tov, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It's Rabbi Eric Solomon in Raleigh, North Carolina, bringing back some morning Torah. I took a little break, and I feel inspired this beautiful Friday, warm Friday here in Raleigh, post-storm. We are now here on the Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh in the Jewish practice and tradition, according to the Hebrew calendar, is this new month, which means this new moon. And the Hebrew month we're entering is called Av, or Menachem Av. It's one of the saddest months or periods in the Jewish calendar. We're about to lead up to remembering the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem a few thousand years ago. But during this period, I want to talk a little bit about this, specifically new moon in general, not just specifically this Menachem Av, but in Rosh Chodesh, and what does new moon mean? So we in the Jewish community, we do celebrate when the moon is full in the sky. A number of our holidays like Passover, Purim, others, Sukkot, take place when the full moon is beautiful in the sky. If you have a clear night, you can see it beautifully. But the new month and the new moon happens actually in this very unique transition. And those of you that know some astronomy know this well. When the moon is actually completely dark in the sky, you can't actually see the moon. And then that new sliver of the moon comes forward. That is the new moon. And it's actually a practice in antiquity of seeing and witnessing that new moon, and then you know the new moon, the new month has begun. So Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, we say Chodesh Tov right now, this is the time where the moon was, quote-unquote, invisible in the sky, and then a slice came forward. Now, to be more precise, it's invisible, but it doesn't mean it's not there. The moon is there, it's just being blocked in certain ways, during the angles of the way the moon is going around the earth and stuff like that, or the sun's reflection of the light and things like this. So it's there. We can't see it with our eyes, but we sense that there is something there. It's the moon, and then it comes sliver out, and it's a sign of hope of the new month. So the theme of Rosh Chodesh, amongst many themes, one of the teachings, is that even though the moon's up in the sky, even though we can't see it, we can feel it, we can sense it. We have hope it's going to return to our eyes. So with this sense of that there's things that exist in the world beyond what we can see, like love, for example, something beyond we can see, or even suffering. You can always see it on the face of someone, but you know what's happening inside. That's an extra sensitivity of the soul that you can read into something. Brought to mind this amazing story that's happened this past week in the state of Israel. So the state of Israel has a new government, but in addition has a new president. And many of you know the president is a figurehead, doesn't have any type of traditional political power, but has a lot of influential power, and actually has the power to help set the mandate for a new government. So our past president, Ruby Rivlin, had a very important role many times in his presidency. So some of his symbolic role, but it has a lot of important diplomatic place in a kind of Israeli society, and even amongst the Jewish people, in terms of setting a tone for what the state should be like. Well, the new president, last name is Herzog, he swore his commitment to serve as president, the Nasi, on the Tanakh of his grandfather, I believe. And his grandfather was a chief rabbi in, I believe, Scotland, and then eventually came to Israel and served that role in Israel as well. So the Tanakh had a very powerful meaning for him to be swearing in on his grandfather's Tanakh, but he told a story that has been recorded. Some say it's a legend, or may not be 100% true, but there seems to be backed up some evidence around it, and I want to share it here. And I think it deals with this issue about seeing beyond what's there. He tells a story that, sadly, after the Holocaust, after the Shoah, Chief Rabbi Herzog was sent on behalf of the state of Israel and the Jewish people to go to monasteries and other places where nunneries, where Jewish children were given by Jewish parents, many of them who were killed and murdered in the Shoah and the Holocaust, but they gave their children over to Catholic monasteries and nunneries to protect their kids during the Holocaust. After the war was over, parents no longer living, many of these were children that were babies or toddlers when they were given to the monasteries, taken care of well. This is a great debt we have to the righteous Gentiles of those communities. So he went back basically to retrieve the children, those that don't have parents anymore. So he told one particular story. He went to one nunnery in order to do so, and the Mother Superior, she was very gracious, and she said, of course, you can come and take the children back. Now they're 5, 6 years old or older. But she said, we have hundreds of children, thousands of kids here in our orphanages. How will you be able to determine which are the Jewish children? They were abandoned, essentially, left in care as babies. How will you do that? And he says, I have a way. So he went in front and gathered all the children, in particular nunnery, together in like the dining hall. And there were hundreds of children there, Jewish and not Jewish, but the Jewish ones didn't really know they were Jewish because they were left as babies. And he stood up and he chanted the famous statement of our faith, the Shema Yisrael from the book of Deuteronomy. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And according to the story, children started to cry because they had heard that prayer chanted them. It's a tradition to offer that prayer when a person goes to sleep, anyone particularly, but also adults with their children. And some of them started to cry out, Mama, Papa, Ima, Abba, where are you? Remembering the Shema Yisrael that they chanted to them as they went to sleep. And from there he gathered and said, these are the Jewish children. They know it as Shema Yisrael. It's a very moving story. Just telling it to you gives me chills. When I heard it, it's powerful. And this is the Tanakh that was carried by that chief rabbi that the current president carried and swore on. He held that Tanakh that apparently was with the chief rabbi while he did this regathering of the children. And there's many teachings that I want to offer this, but the one I want to offer here is this chief rabbi, Herzog, alav shalom, he was able to see into the souls of these Jewish children that maybe the head nun did not see, understandably. Maybe even the children did not see or know, because it was deeper than on the surface. It's something you had to sense on the neshama level. That's a deeper type of seeing, and that's what faith is really about. Faith is not saying blindly, I believe in something. It's saying, I sense there is something greater here than I can see with my eyes. And that sense that I can maybe pull that out, or I can be aware of it, maybe in moments of quiet or moments of prayer. That's what I would argue a spiritual life is about. And that's in many ways what Shabbat is about. Shabbat is a time when we try to silence all the external things or focus only on what we see and sense what is there, but can't always be seen so easily. That special prayer that was offered to the children, they felt that and saw it and sensed it in a deeper place than it was on the surface. It was so deep in their souls. So too in that rabbi, so too in us, so too in all of us. So I bless us with a Shabbat and a new moon, a Chodesh Tov, where we can sense and be aware, unabashed, unembarrassed, unashamed, to sense what may not be obvious to the eye, but is more true than anything. Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov, a meaningful weekend. Kol Tuv.